Welcome back to Lost for Words with Lori. Clickbait. I am not immune to wanting to use the tricks of the trade and do clickbait just like everybody else. Let's talk about the truth, bitches. Oh my God. Yeah, it's clickbait. It's totally clickbait. It is to a degree and it's not. But you guys didn't think you were going to hear from me so soon. I just dropped a podcast like 2 days ago. Normally I go for days or sometimes a week before you guys get to hear my drivel, right? But guess what, guys? Toxic cesspool world has struck again. And without toxic cesspool world, I wouldn't have probably 3/4 of the subject matter that I have on this podcast. But yeah, let's talk about toxic cesspool world once again. Lines have been drawn in the sand, and there is another war. You gotta love it. It's honestly, I've talked about it before. It's almost like an MTV drama that nobody gets paid for, and I find it to be comical at best most of the time, but within the comedy that goes with that, and the fodder that it creates for my podcast, for subject matter, because I try to relate it to my life and to your lives, hopefully that you'll gain something from that. But it really started to get me thinking about the truth, and the search for the truth. I mean, think about this. Toby got into paranormal investigating to search for the truth of what happens after people die, and humans have been searching for the truth for eons, and now I'm gonna unwrap my search for the truth today. And y'all know I talk about it on here, on my podcast, and I always try to get people to think objectively about things and about the truth. And that's kind of what I'm gonna unwrap today. Is let's talk about the truth, because toxic cesspool world for the last 2 days has been everybody yelling and screaming and pointing fingers and yelling about the truth. And it got me to thinking about the truth and what is the truth and the search for the truth. And I came across this really interesting quote by somebody called Fernando Pessoa. And it says, "The search for the truth, whether the subjective truth of one's own convictions, the objective truth of reality, or the social truth of money or power, always brings with it, if the searcher in question deserves the prize, the ultimate knowledge that the truth does not exist." Interesting. So if you guys want that quote, look me up. I'll give you the quote. But I thought, boy, that's sure interesting. The search for the truth, guys, boy, let me tell you. And upon thinking about this, everybody's pointing fingers and yelling and shouting about the truth, and they're liars, and everybody's a liar. The truth is subjective. Now, isn't that just interesting if you really want to think about it? The truth is subjective. And why do I say that? Everybody's truth, everybody's perspective is what tells you what your truth is. And I'm trying to get people to think objectively about it from that. The truth can be very complicated because people interpret their truth differently based on your own perspective. It's based on your emotions. It's based on your reality. It's based on what's going on in your life. And that is your truth. Just like morality is subjective. Everybody's morality is subjective based on your belief system. And that's a fact, folks. That is the truth. That's a fact. Facts and truth, right? Being synonymous with each other. And to me, the acceptance of that is that the truth is subjective. And if you can think objectively about that, that changes the whole ball game. Because if you're sitting up here listening to everybody scream about, I'm telling the truth and I'm telling the truth, it really starts to make you think, if you've got to scream so loudly about your truth being the truth, that's a red flag, man. That's a red flag right there. The truth is subjective. It's an undeniable fact. Everybody's morality is subjective, and my agenda and what I want you to believe is the truth is based on whatever it is that I'm trying to accomplish. Interestingly enough, I found a website and they have a YouTube channel, and it's called, let's see, it's called Veritasium. There it is, Veritasium. I'm going to drop the link down in the description. And I watched this really interesting, it's about an 8 or 9 minute YouTube video, and it's called The Illusion of Truth. And it talks about how social media plays a big role in how we perceive what the truth is. And it talks about something called cognitive ease, and things that are about how things that are true things that are true will elicit this cognitive ease. Like fire is hot, ice is cold. Things that are true are familiar and are effortless, and they're usually very easy to verify. And it's usually relatable with something that makes you feel good. And they can be artificially created over time. And if somebody repeats these things over and over and over again, and if they make you feel good, the cognitive ease allows you to believe it. And again, it's subjective. So people can scream, truth, truth, truth. And if it feels good, or if it's easily relatable, it can be artificially created, and people will fall for that, or people will believe that. I guess thinking about the fact that truth is very subjective and morality is subjective, and people, how many of you heard the phrase that people will twist the truth? And I'm watching all of these things go on, and all of these people using their truths to justify all of these bad behaviors just to get out of being accountable for their actions. And again, I wonder why. And when you sit down and think about the truth being subjective and try to look at it from an objective third party, because I'm not involved in all of these shouting matches and these lines in the sand, and I'm shaking my head and going, why is anybody even entertaining all of this anger? Why is anybody even entertaining all of this argument? Why does anybody care about somebody else's reality, somebody else's subjective truth? Does it feel good? Is it your problem? I'm not trying to throw shade. I'm not trying to call people out. I don't care. I don't care about the big war going on in toxic cesspool world. It's not my circus. It's not my monkey. It affects a lot of people around me. Yeah, sure. Because when you're a part of social media, you're going to be a part of what's going on. And those kind of things affect the people that you are friends with. But I see a lot of people trying to use those so-called truths to sway the outcome of whatever it is that is their agenda, and try to influence people. That's the way of the world, right? One of the phrases that somebody used, and again, I'm not trying to throw juice boxes or shade, which I normally would do, is that there was a big difference between truth and hate. And I disagree with that, because the truth is subjective. And if your agenda is hate, or if you're trying to sway people's, thought process to dislike or get on your side, then your truth, subjectively, your agenda, if it's hateful towards someone or somebody else and you're using hateful rhetoric, becomes truth. So therefore, that sentence in itself is hypocritical. And I have a fundamental reason to, my morality, my subjective morality, finds that to be repugnant, right? So that's my truth. Does that mean that my truth is different than yours? We could take that one step further and say, all right, here's a truth. Toby, my fiance, is dead. Now, an agnostic sees this as the truth. He's dead. He is no longer on this physical plane. His body ceases to exist. Therefore, the statement, Toby is dead, is the truth. Now, however, somebody who has a faith or moral belief system, or is a Christian who believes that death is just the next step of an eternal life, would see this as a lie and say that I'm a liar, that Toby, if he had accepted Jesus Christ as his Lord and Savior, is not dead. He is eternally living in heaven with God. For me, my truth is he could be both, depending on how I perceive the truth, because of my own perception, my own feelings, my own subjective truth, right? What is a subjective truth? I mean, some things are clearly subjective truth. I like coffee, you like tea. There's no right answer for everyone. That is an objective truth. But subjective preference or taste in anything doesn't make it fact. And I think the difference is people misconstrue the difference between truth and fact. Because again, truth is subjective. I think people get so caught up in the echo chamber of what is going on and wanting to be part of this bigger thing and the drama and the lines in the sand and everybody's agenda and fitting in somewhere. And the fact that being accountable, nobody's holding anybody accountable. We're going back to accountability. We're going back to being transparent. And everybody's doing it, all this bad behavior across the board. But they seem to think that if they say, well, I'm telling the truth and I have proof, that it justifies bad behavior. I'm sorry, but if somebody calls me a bad name or kicks me when I'm down or says something publicly about me, that's bad behavior. You're accountable for that. You have no justification. Morally, it's reprehensible. That is a fact. From my subjective truth. You can argue with it all you want, and you can use all of the justifications of your whatever it is that you want to use for that. But at the end of the day, I have a right to how I feel about that. And you're accountable. I'm accountable. Whoever is doing the bad behavior is accountable for that. But you can't continue the bad behavior and then turn around and try to use truth or hate or whatever your agenda is subjectively to justify that and not be accountable for it. That's, honest to God, that is my fact. That is how I feel about it. Right or wrong, that's how I objectively think people need to think about that. Change is uncomfortable. Making mistakes is uncomfortable. Being angry at people because they don't agree with how you fundamentally believe your belief system, or your morals may be different, or you may have a disagreement about how somebody handled a situation, is uncomfortable. And being an adult and having maturity, realizing other people have valid points, even if you disagree with it, is uncomfortable, but it's mature and it's correct and it's right. I mean, imagine a wall that's green on one side and red on the other. And I'm on one side and you're on the other. I see red, you see green. We're both right. We both see the color that we see, even though we disagree on what color the wall is. But from your perspective, you're right. It's green on your side. It's red on my side. But being able to realize that you're right and I'm right, and you being able to realize that I'm right, even if we disagree, is mature. And it's fact. But we're both accountable for that, and how we act and how we treat our fellow human based on that is what says who we are in our hearts and who we are as fundamentally as humans towards each other, instead of all this using excuses to justify and trying to twist the truth subjectively and try to use words like truth and hate synonymously with each other because we have an agenda or because we're trying to gain and win and influence people and friends. For what? At the end of the day, what do we gain from that? Change is uncomfortable. And what do we learn from that? I mean, good and bad are illusions. If you can think of things with no more good and no more bad, and try to have empathy for other people and that they have a right to feel and think what they want, and we don't have to like it, but we do have to respect it, because everybody's perspective is subjective. That's maturity. That's being a good human. That's stepping outside of ourselves and trying to be better and do better for the people around us. Stop the echo chamber. Be an individual. Notice how much happier we would all be. Go with your gut. Stop trying to justify all of your bad behavior by worrying about how everybody is viewing everything from your subjective truth. And I mean, like I said at the beginning, y'all know I talk a lot here on trying to get people to think objectively. I feel like I bang my head against the wall watching people do that same thing where they repeat the same behavior and get frustrated when they get the same result. They expect different results. I can't remember what the exact quote was that Einstein, I posted it somewhere, about insanity being repeating the same behavior and expecting different results. Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, I think was the actual quote that Albert Einstein had said. And it never ceases to amaze me that people keep making excuses to not change. I know change is hard. I know it's painful. But you can't make sense out of nonsense. But that's my thoughts on truth. Truth is subjective, people. Your perspective isn't always the only perspective. Everyone has one. Their truth looks just as much valid as yours does. Who's right? We're all right. But if other people's truth makes you uncomfortable, go with your gut, your instinct. It's gotten you this far. Humans have been doing it. We've all been searching for the truth for eons. Why is my truth any less valid than someone else's? But if my truth makes you feel good about yourself and encourages you to be a better human, if that's the line in the sand that you want to stand on, so be it. Wash your fucking hands, folks. Be a better human. Love y'all.